Welcome to the Uncensored Self Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Gillen, and this is a space where women who value achievement, success, accomplishment, and wealth, but also crave happiness, love, joy, and deep fulfillment come to remember that we get to have both. Not by doing more, but by being more of who we truly are. In this show, we explore identity, energy, alignment, and embodiment because you didn't come here to follow someone else's rules. You came to right your own. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Uncensored Self Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Gillen, with a very important conversation today about why it is so hard to change. Why is change so hard? And I really love this conversation. And I always like to share with you guys, how the things drop in, if you will. And this one was a laundry thought. It's one of the things that I do when I fold laundry. When I really do any mundane task, when I say mundane, a task that you probably currently use for overthinking, whether it's unloading the dishwasher, making kids' lunches, folding laundry, just the things as you putz around your house and move through. And there's kind of this stream of consciousness that's running in your brain all the time. For most of us, it's what we didn't do and to-do lists and checklists. What I very intentionally do and have all of my clients do is start turning that stream of consciousness into what you actually want. So instead of thinking about most of what we think about, start really intentionally flowing energy towards your vision for your life, the life that you're creating. This is a really simple way to play the energy game, but it is where so many of my good ideas come from because I spend a lot of time tuning into the version of me, whom I call the happy woman, who has everything that I want. And so the ideas are good and they flow. And so this one came in and folding laundry around why does change feel so hard? And I really love this conversation. And I want to tell you just how God always shows up. So first and foremost, I have this idea. I do what I always do, right? Pick up my phone, start downloading kind of my thoughts and ideas. And then I always have ChatGPT put it into an outline for me. And then the next day on TikTok, somebody comments on one of my posts where it says basically like most people don't want to change. Most people don't want to change. And it's really sad. And I was like, confirmation, right? That this is a really great conversation because I don't believe that's true. I think that everybody wants to change and they don't know how, right? So it was confirmation of the idea. And then last night I'm texting with a woman who has been looking at my programs and she is going through some stuff just professionally and, kind of how do I make this decision and what are your thoughts on this? And of course, I was like, now I'm recording this podcast and it's gonna explain so much of the situation that she's in. So I just always love to share kind of the magic breadcrumbs that brings me here to each conversation because these breadcrumbs are happening in your life when you slow down enough to pay attention. So here's what I want to share with you. You are not stuck because you don't have enough information. You are stuck because changing requires you to confront safety, identity, and comfort. I'm going to say that for you again. You are not stuck because you do not have enough information. And I know that that is what your brain thinks because I used to feel that way. I always thought that the reason why things felt harder for me is because there was something I didn't know. There was a skill I was missing. There was a strategy I wasn't familiar with. There was somebody who knew more than me. There was one thing. There was just the one thing, just more efficiency, more something, that there was more information that I needed. Because naturally, why else would I not be able to create what it is I wanted to create in the world? There must be something missing. And I thought it was information. And we tend to do this. The world has taught us that. There's something in your life you don't like, get to fucking work or learn something new. And if it were as simple as that, right, the world would look very different. If it were as simple as just do something different to get a different result, that would be the case. Right? So this episode is actually going to answer two questions for you. It's going to answer the first one, which is why is change so hard? Even when you know better. And then number two is what actually creates real and lasting change. So I'm going to walk you through how you got here like I normally do. And then I'm going to walk you through what the fuck do we do about it, right? So the first reason why I believe that change is so hard is that your brain is wired for safety. Your brains is wired for safety and not growth. Your brain's job is to keep you safe. It is not to make you happy, fulfilled, or expansive. Actually, like lately, I've been studying some work where they're talking about like the intellect and how in today's generation, today's world, we misuse our intellect and we way overly rely on our intellect. But that's another thing. There's our intellect and then there's the brain, right? The part of your brain who's scanning for safety all the time, right? Your brain's job is to keep you safe. It's not to make you happy. It's not to fulfill you. It's not to expand you in any capacity. So when you want to make a change, even when you know that that change is good for you, your brain is naturally going to perceive it as a risk. Change is perceived as risk. Risk equals danger. Danger triggers self-protection. You have to remember, guys, that we are animals. I know that we are extremely advanced, but at our core, we are animals. We have survival instincts. We have nervous systems. We're going to talk about that a lot today, right? We have human instincts. And so our instinct at one point in time was designed to keep us from tigers, right? So anytime you go to make a change, your brain believes you are being chased by a tiger. Your brain believes that there is a threat. And then it triggers self-protection. And that's where our brain starts to negotiate with us, right? We start to negotiate for those commitments we made to ourselves. It stalls. It starts to make excuses. It creates stories about why we can't do the thing. I'll do it tomorrow. And it convinces you to stay where you are. But what's really good news about this is that this is why self-sabotage is not a character flaw. It's not a character flaw. It is a nervous system response. And the reason why this is good news is because I talk to so many of you who are beating yourself up about why you're not doing the things that you need to do. I know what to do and I'm not doing it. It's a nervous system response. And so if you do not intentionally rewire your beliefs and your patterns, your brain will always default to what feels familiar, even if it is miserable. Even if it is miserable. If you don't intentionally decide what you're going to do and how your life is going to go and intentionally override the parts of you that tell you that this isn't safe, your brain will default to what feels familiar. The problem is, what do we do instead? When our brain says, people like you don't have lives like this, you say, you're right. When your brain tells you, we'll start tomorrow, you say, okay, I'm just really tired. When your brain tells you that, if you don't say yes to this opportunity, you don't know when another one is coming, and you just say, okay. It defaults to what feels familiar. And if you don't consciously make a different choice, you will continue to live an energetic match to where you are right now. Okay. So, like I said, I tell you this not to frustrate you. I tell you this to explain it, because again, when you are smart and accomplished and really good at what you do, and the person that people come to solve all of their problems, it is really fucking frustrating to feel like, why can't I change? Like, I know exactly what to do. I am so capable and competent. Even I was chatting with a client the other day, a woman who did one of my Create 2026 sessions. And she was like, I do this all the time with my patients. I'm like, yeah, we are the worst at our own stuff. And it's because we are wired for safety. So even though we have these big, beautiful, powerful thinking brains, we are still animals responding to stimuli. And if we don't line those things up, if the mind, body, soul connection is disconnected, which it is for most women in 2026, it will continue. Safety will win. Safety will win. If your mind and your body and your soul are not on the same page, or your spirit or whatever you believe in, if those three things aren't working together, the default is safety. So we have to start intentionally rewiring our beliefs and our patterns. Otherwise, our brain will default to safety. We have to find that alignment. Okay? The second reason why change is so hard is because universal law works 100% of the time. Universal law works 100% of the time because it normalizes your struggle. And I talk a lot about probably about 4 universal laws with my clients, right? We talk about the law of vibration, we talk about the law of attraction, we talk about the law of divine oneness, and we talk about the law of polarity, right? There's 12 universal laws, right? But universal laws are the laws of the universe. They are what govern the universe, and they work. There's nothing scientifically to refute any of them, right? They have just been distrusted because of their origin, right? Universal law wasn't originated by religion. And so it has been made to be not trusted because it's not part of religion, which is a man-made concept, right? I'm not saying that God is a man-made concept. I'm saying that religion is a man-made concept. So we're not going there today. But universal law, there's about 4 that I teach a lot. There's more than that. But ultimately, universal law normalizes your struggle. It normalizes your situation because you are an energetic match to the life you have. Let's look at this like a radio station, okay? That's how I want to talk about this today. I live in Kansas City, so 102.1 is a radio station. And as of right now, let's say that your life is being broadcast at the frequency of 102.1, right? So everything that you experience in your life is an energetic match 2.1, which means if at 102.1 you struggle with money, you will be surrounded by people who struggle with money. If you believe that success requires sacrifice at 102.1, the frequency of 102.1, you will see sacrifice everywhere. If you believe that life is hard, business is hard, you have to work really hard, it will look hard everywhere you turn because everyone at that frequency is having a similar experience, right? And again, guys, whether you look at this from science, whether you look at this from spirituality, it's been proven in so many different ways, right? That you are not perceiving reality. You are perceiving reality as you see it. That's why 2 people can watch the same movie and have a completely different experience, right? 2 people can look at the same painting and feel completely different things, right? The painting is the painting, but you're experiencing reality through your frequency. And so when you are at a frequency of wherever you are, whether it's chaos and stress and overwhelm, whether it is struggle and hard work, whether it's burnout, whether it's feeling you got the weight of the world on your shoulders, whether it feels like you are chasing and chasing and chasing and never getting there, it is because you are an energetic match to that life. And the reason why this is such an important conversation is because one of the first thoughts that your big, smart, beautiful brain will do is say, Ryan, if the energy game is real, if universal law is real, if it's really as simple as you say that it is, why does the world look the way that it does? And I don't just mean like the bigger picture of the world and what's happening in the whole world. I mean, even if you're a real estate agent, about 60% of my clients are realtors. These days, it's probably closer to 70 actually, are realtors. And if you are around a bunch of realtors who talk about struggle all of the time, you're going to struggle as well because you're an energetic match to it. Right? So if you want to have a different experience of life, you have to change your energy. But universal law doesn't judge, it mirrors. And so what winds up happening when I'm tuned into 102.1 all of the time, it just becomes normal. Everybody's struggling. Everybody in this room is struggling. Every time I go to these meetings, if you're an entrepreneur and you're in a mastermind, and every time you get into that mastermind and everybody's talking about how hard it is and how the cost per lead is so expensive, and because this is happening and that is happening, it will become normal. You're an energetic match to it. So struggle becomes normal, chaos feels familiar, and then comfort comes from not being alone because everybody's unhappy. Everybody's having a hard time. At least it's not just me. This is how people stay stuck without realizing they're stuck. So because they're tuned into 102.1 and they can only see what is 102.1. You have to change your frequency. You have to change your energy if you want to have a different experience. But the reason why I share this with you is because this explains why it feels hard to change. Because we look left and we look right and everybody is having this experience. And so we think, well, if everybody's having such a hard time, who am I to be the one who doesn't have a hard time? If everybody else is having a shitty year, how am I going to be the one who's not having a shitty year? Right? Like it occurs to you to do things differently than the people around you, but then you're like, well, if it were that easy, everybody would be doing it. And why am I going to be the one that breaks the mold? Right? That's what accidentally winds up happening when you become an energetic match to whatever you're an energetic match for, and you're not intentionally dictating the energy. One of my favorite teachers, Abraham Hicks, they say all of the time that, you get what you think about 100% of the time, whether you want it or not, right? It's whether you're conscious of it or not, it's happening, right? You're tuned into the frequency of 102.1, whether you like it and if you want to say like, I have no control over this, cool, that will continue to be your case. But if you want to do something different, you can. Okay. But that's why change becomes so hard because universal law works 100% of the time. And like I said, this actually is a case for universal law, for the energy game, not a case against it. Some people think, well, the state of the world is clearly like a case against your work, Ryan, because if it were that easy, it would look different. If it were that easy, not everybody would be struggling. Well, yeah, because at 102.1, we think it's normal to struggle. When we go to 103.3, 4.3, and the people up there don't think it's normal to struggle. The people that operate at that frequency think that business is easy. They think that business is just a natural expression of who they are. They think that people love to work with them. They think that it just is so simple. They think that they can be, do, and have whatever the fuck that they want. And so they're having a different experience. So when you are at a winning frequency, you will also see people winning everywhere. That's why a lot of people talk to like really successful people and they call them unrelatable, right? Well, yes, because they're at a different frequency. They are experiencing life at 107.3 and you're experiencing it at 102.1. You are not relatable. You are not relatable. But the problem is we have made being relatable an insults. You're not being unrelatable an insults. And so then people start to turn their frequency down to match instead of being like, come on, friend, come on up here with me. Right? But the reason why change is hard is because universal law works 100% of the time. And the third reason why change is hard is because comfort is more dangerous than pain. Most people would rather stay comfortable than get honest. And this one fucking sucks because I know what you're thinking right now. And you're like, this is not me, Ryan. I'm uncomfortable all the motherfucking time. You see the conversations I have all day, every day. I hear you and I love you. But here's what I know to be true about you. You will learn strategies. You will buy systems. You will consume content. You will optimize everything external. You will hire an assistant. You will invest in that coaching program. You will learn all of the AI strategies. You will do every single one of those things. But I ask you to sit down and regulate your nervous system for 30 minutes a day, and you tell me you don't have time. Comfort is more dangerous than pain. Sitting down and asking yourself the question, why don't I believe I'm worthy of an incredible life? What do you mean? I'm worthy of an incredible life. I have an incredible life. It's just really hard right now. Right? Asking yourself, why do I keep choosing the same patterns? I'm not choosing this, Ryan. Those clients are just assholes. Those people are just right. Why am I afraid to stop proving and start trusting? I'm I'm not trying to prove myself to anyone. People are trying to prove themselves to me. You forget that I used to be you. I know the thoughts inside of your head better than you do because I'm aware of them. You might not even be aware that they're there, but you can feel what I just said. Why won't you make the time to have those conversations? Be honest. It feels unbearable. So instead of facing yourself, you just fucking work harder. You stay busy. You keep moving. You blame it on the pressure. I don't have a choice here, Ryan. The weight of the world is on my shoulders. So many people depend on me. Again, your brain likes the familiar, even if you fucking hate it. Comfort isn't peace. That whole, the life you want is just outside of your comfort zone. It's true. Comfort, you're going to have to get uncomfortable. Changing your frequency from 102.1 to 103.3 to 105.3 to 105.1 to 106.5 to 107.3 isn't always going to be comfortable, but you have to decide, do you stay where you are? Do you stay at 102.1 and have this set of circumstances forever, or do you do the uncomfortable work? Because you will do the uncomfortable work in the business. You will do the uncomfortable work for the children, but will you do the uncomfortable work for yourself? That's up to you. And it requires radical honesty. And you want to know what's so funny? I think that when I found universal law, it was very much in the days of, and this has got to be back 2019, 2020. I think I met Stacy in 2020 or 2021, 21. So 5 years ago now, which is wild to think about. But it's only been 5 years. I feel like I've lived 87 lifetimes. Like I have been so many different people in the last 5 years. It is like I've been more people in the last 5 years than I was in the previous 37 before that. I got to tell you that. I think what winds up happening in this instance is, we don't want to get honest with ourselves. Oh, where was I going with that? Meeting Stacy, universal law. Bing. People promise it's easy. When we say that life can feel easy, we think it's supposed to be easy. And most of us are not comfortable with ease. We're not comfortable with ease. We wouldn't know what to do with life being easy, right? But we also were told that this work should be really fast and it should be really easy. And so then when you do something and it's not really fast and really easy, what do? As a smart, successful person, you beat yourself up, right? You beat yourself up. What the fuck? What is wrong with me? This is so easy for everybody else. Why can everybody else figure this out? Why does it look like everybody else seems to have this mastered? Everybody seems happier than me. Everybody seems like their business is going so well. And like, yeah, I know I'm making a lot of money, but gosh, this is not really fun anymore. Or yeah, I know, like I got the job that I want, but it's my soul is dying on the inside, right? And we think there's something wrong with us because why isn't it easy for me? This work is not easy. It is simple. It is simple work, which is why our brain rejects it. But it is not easy work. Getting radical fucking honest with yourselves and the lies that you've told yourselves and the circumstances that you put up with and the things that you have tolerated, you don't want to do that. I didn't want to do it either. I tried to skip that step and just get to the manifesting money part. Do you know where that landed me? Bankruptcy, in case you were wondering. Real change requires radical fucking honesty. So why is knowing not enough? Why is knowing not enough? We were told if we just knew the right things, if we just had the right qualifications, if we just had the right experience, then, but you don't change by learning more, right? We don't change by learning more. That's why I spent years learning about universal law and not much changed. You change when you stop negotiating with yourself. You already know what to do. You just don't do it. Why? Because you keep bargaining. I'll start tomorrow. I'll do it when things calm down. I don't have time for that right now. That's my favorite, right? I talk a lot about this in the excuses episode of Chase Happy Instead, my private podcast series. In case you were wondering, there's an entire episode on the excuses we make, right? But you wouldn't negotiate boundaries with a child, right? Like if your kid was like, Mom, I don't want to ride about, wear a bike helmet. It wouldn't be up for fucking discussion. Wear the bike helmet. Wear the bike helmet. It keeps you safe. Everyone has one on. But you negotiate endlessly with yourself. You tell yourself you're going to start regulating your nervous system. You set the alarm to get up 30 minutes early so you can actually enjoy your cup of coffee in peace. And then the alarm goes off and you don't get the fuck out of bed. You tell yourself you're no longer going to take misaligned clients. You're going to no longer take this type of client. And the next time you get a referral or a lead or a social media outreach from that type of client, and you're like, well, I mean, who am I to turn down money? Right? You negotiate endlessly with yourself. You say that you want something and then you don't do the things. That is why nothing changes. Because you think that change is going to happen when you know enough, and change isn't going to happen until you stop fucking negotiating with yourself. So then what does actually create change, right? What does actually create change? First and foremost, learn the energy game. Learn the energy game. Action is not the starting point. It is the last step of the creation process. But it has 95% of our attention. The least powerful part of the process has the majority of our attention, right? What's the 80-20 rule, right? They say that, 80% of your results comes from 20% of your effort, right? It's the same thing with the energy game. 80% of your result, and actually, I think it's even larger, to be real honest with you. But even if we played around with the 80-20 rule, 80% of results is coming from 20% of your effort, but you're spending 80% of your energy on effort. Did that math? You get my point, right? So when you play the energy game, what is the energy game, right? It's realizing that it is our energy that creates, that we are all walking Wi-Fi signals, and that there are 4 pieces to that Wi-Fi signal. One is our identity. Who do I believe myself to be? Do I believe myself to be somebody who doesn't have a fucking choice but to say yes when I want to say no? Do I believe myself to be somebody who makes a lot of money but isn't very happy? Do I believe myself to be somebody who doesn't get to have it all in life and this is just the way it is and I just got to fucking do it because the weight of the world is on my shoulders? Is that who I see myself as? Because if that's where I see myself, all the action in the fucking world isn't going to fix it. I promise. I speak from very personal experience, right? But the energy game is our identity, our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. Action being the last part. But anytime we want to make a change, we go straight to action and we ignore the other 3. And then we're like, see, it didn't work. And how do we know that this is true? 2 people can use the exact same strategy and get wildly different results. I actually learned this. I honestly think, there's a million dominoes that I can now see in my life, knowing, like, sitting where I am. And I don't know if you see this, like, you can look back and you're like, oh, that's why that happened. And I see what I was doing there, like the parts of you that have led you to today. And one of them is my first sales coaching program back in 2019, 2020 was called the Uncensored Sales Program. And then it was the Uncensored Sales Accelerator. And I put about 200 women through it. And it really started to get to me when women would join the program and they wouldn't get results. They wouldn't get results. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't get results? Like, I use this strategy day in and day out. I taught this strategy inside of multi-million-dollar organizations. These people over here are getting incredible results. Like, what do you mean you aren't getting results? And so then I started thinking that people weren't doing the work, right? That's what we think. Well, you're just not doing it. And then we started hosting accountability calls and getting people together, and they were doing the work. Why were they not getting the results? The difference is their energy. Your energy is the signal. You are a walking Wi-Fi signal. I like to use the word Wi-Fi signal, right? But like, you are an energetic being in a physical body. You are more energy than matter, right? You are a soul in a human body if that feels good to you, but you are more energetic than you are matter. Your energy is the signal, and then your actions amplify it, which is why you can take endless, massive action. But if your energy says, this sucks, I hate this, why is this so hard? Are other people really doing this? Why am I even bothering doing this? Nobody even fucking notices. If that's the signal that you are taking to your action, it doesn't matter how good the action is. So you don't actually create results by doing more. You create results by aligning your energy, by changing your radio dial. If you are at 102.1, you've got to get yourself to 104.3. And you don't do that by working harder. You do that by securing your identity and by thinking, feeling, and acting from the life that you fucking want. Learn the energy game. The game that you're playing. Bob Proctor, I think, says this, right? Like, your way isn't working. You might as well try it mine, right? Stop playing the mind game. Learn the energy game. The second part of this. Regulate your nervous system. Regulate your nervous system. Regulate your nervous system. Regulate your nervous system, or nothing will shift. A dysregulated nervous system cannot create change. Again, you are an energetic being, right? We have EEGs and EKGs. Our nervous system is running the show. And if it thinks that you are in fight or flight, there is no creativity. There is no clarity. There is no capacity. There's no fun. There's no joy, right? Even if you're in freeze, if your body thinks that it needs to be, if your nervous system thinks that it needs to protect itself, there is no energy for magic, creativity, good ideas, intuition, curiosity, serendipity, coincidences, none of that, right? Running at max capacity is not a flex. It's the reason why you're stuck. If your body doesn't feel safe, your mind will not allow change. I'm going to say that for you again. If your body does not feel safe, your mind won't allow change. That is why regulation comes before manifestation always. Because in order to change your radio dial from 102.1 to 104.3, as that's what you desire, you're going to have to slow down enough in order to understand the signal of 102.1 so you know how to change it. Most of you don't understand your signal. I know I certainly did not. I remember once in my conversations with Stacey when we were working together, she had asked me a really emotionally charged question. It might have actually been in our consult when we first started. She asked me a really emotionally charged question. And she was like, Ryan, where do you feel that in your body? And I was like, I don't. I was so disconnected from my emotions, from my body. I was so in my head and so intellectual and so in my masculine energy that I couldn't feel it. I couldn't feel it. It was numb. You can't create from numb. You can't create from fight or flight. I mean, I'm going to take that back. You can create from that space. It's not going to feel good because you're a creator. You're always creating. It's just, how's it going to feel? But it's going to be hard to impact change from that place. And ultimately, change requires an identity shift. Right now, you don't just have a problem. You identify as the problem. I don't like the word problem, but you get my point here, right? Right now, you don't just have a problem. You identify as the problem. You identify as the struggler. You identify as the overgiver. You identify as the people pleaser. You wear a fucking hat that says chaos coordinator on it. You're the one that has to earn everything. You couldn't possibly take anything given to you for free or that you don't deserve. You have made the problem your personality. You can't solve a problem you're identified with. You have to become somebody else. And it's not becoming somebody else. You have to remember who the fuck you are. That happens to be episode number 5 in the Chase Happy Instead podcast, private podcast series. Remember who the fuck you are, because you are not inherently a struggler. You have learned the identity of struggler, and it requires letting go of who you have been. And like I said, this is why we said change is hard, because letting go of who you have been is scary. Because even though you're not super happy or fulfilled or, obsessed with life right now, you're alive, right? It's not that bad. That's what we tell ourselves. Change requires an identity shift. But as long as you see yourself as the problem or you're identified with the problem, it's going to be hard to change who you are because it threatens your ego, right? And here's the final piece for you. At some point, quite honestly, you just have to get sick of your own shit. You just have to get so motherfucking sick and tired of climbing out of bed every single morning, exhausted before your feet hit the floor, already knee deep or elbow deep in emails before you ever actually have a cup of coffee. Not to mention you haven't drank any water in God knows how long, and you've had 3 meetings before you've gotten your kids out the door. Like at some point in time, you just have to say enough is a motherfucking enough. Not from shame, not from clarity. You have to accept this isn't working. But the problem is when you say this isn't working, what your brain hears is you're a failure. That is not true. Wanting to change the way that you do things does not make you a failure. In fact, I think it makes you an innovator. Continuing to do the same thing over and over and over again is expecting a different result. What do they say? It's the definition of insanity. You have to accept that my way isn't working. What I'm doing is working. And then stop trying to rearrange the outside world to feel better. New strategies, new routines, new systems. None of it is going to fucking work if the energy underneath it stays the same. But you have to finally admit that that's the problem. I don't like that word. You have to admit it. That's the work. Change happens from the inside out every single motherfucking time. Lasting change. Sustainable change. You guys all know that you can work hard enough for, how long? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. You can white knuckle, force yourself, whatever, for a short period of time, but that's not sustainable, as you're learning right now, right? Change happens from the inside out every single time. I'll tell you this, it's harder to go from good to great than from bad to great. Bad to good. I think it's harder to go from good to great than from bad to good, because good is comfortable. Good meets your needs. Good doesn't demand change. Nothing in your life has to change right now. You think that it does, but it doesn't. But great requires courage. It requires honesty. It requires you to stop motherfucking negotiating with yourself. And very few people will ever demand that of you, which is why most people stay exactly where they are. If you realize in listening to this that there is something you've been avoiding, most importantly yourself, I want to invite you to download the Chase Happy Instead podcast series. This really goes deep into how did we get here, right? How did we get to this place where we have so much, but we feel so dissatisfied? It's the whole, if I'm so smart, why can't I figure this out question, right? I think it really explains a lot of it. It takes this kind of to another level, tells that context. So if you're like, yeah, no, it's fucking time. I'm ready. I'm sick of my own bullshit. That's a really excellent next step is to download that podcast. It's 5 series. They're all pretty short because I know you, but it's really, really good. But don't avoid this, guys. Awareness is where this starts. But ownership is where it has to change. Being aware, like I have some conversations with some really self-aware people. They know exactly what is going on in their life. They know exactly why they continue to create these patterns. But ownership is where it changes. You've got to fucking own it. See you in the next episode. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Uncensored Self podcast. If this conversation cracked something open for you, trust that. That's the work. And share this episode with a woman in your life who's ready to stop performing and start creating. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe, leave a review. It helps this message reach the women who need it most. Remember, you're the creator. The rules are yours. And your uncensored self, she already knows what to do. Keep leading, keep listening, keep becoming.